The chamber thrummed with a quiet energy, the kind that preceded decisive moments in history. Over 100 species were represented beneath the vast, glass-arched dome of the Concord spire. Their voices hushed as the humans arrived. They did not come with fleets or fanfare. They came with stillness. And in the center of it all walked Commander Ilana Marin, her hair, a striking red flame against her sharp, dark uniform, swayed as she moved up the central aisle. Every step was deliberate. Around her, the council floor stirred uneasily. The Arctheans whispered with their subharmonics. The insectoid Ixil clicked nervously, and the Rivari's translucent fins trembled under their cloaks. All eyes were on the humans, but Marin didn't so much as glance sideways. She didn't need to. She wasn't here to ask. At the summit's edge, a delegation of Arvathi dignitaries awaited with thin smiles and untouched respect. Their leader, Minister Kelthin, was tall even for his kind, his limbs folded in a posture of exaggerated patience. "Commander Marin," he greeted, voice smooth, calculated. "Your presence is noted. We were not informed of your immediate arrival." Ilana stopped 2 paces short of the dais. Behind her, a team of human diplomats took up positions in silence, hands clasped, expressions unreadable. "We issued notice 12 hours ago," she said evenly. "Your sensors would have received it if you hadn't recalibrated the orbital array to ignore Terran bandwidths." Kelthuin's smile stiffened. "A misunderstanding." Marin tilted her head, just slightly. "We don't misunderstand. We observe, and we correct." The statement floated there, stark and untouched. On the upper balcony, a group of historians leaned forward, sensing the shift. Tension wasn't uncommon at these gatherings. What was rare was a particular edge the humans brought, controlled, contained, but unmistakably dangerous. A flicker of light danced above the dais as the council's AI moderator activated. "Proceed, Commander. You have the floor." Ilana nodded once. 3 standard days ago, a human diplomatic vessel en route to the Vera system was intercepted by Arvathi patrols. No communication. No identification requested. Just seizure. 3 diplomats are missing. 1 is confirmed dead. The rest, we assume, are in your custody. Kelthuin opened his palms. An unfortunate case of mistaken identity. There are hostilities near Vera, rebels using human mimicry. "Stop," Ilana said. The word dropped like iron. No rise in volume, no dramatic emphasis. Just a word, 1 syllable, but the entire hall fell silent. She continued, "We have waited. We have followed procedure. We have submitted inquiries. No answers. So now we're done waiting." Kelthuin glanced at the moderator AI, perhaps hoping for interruption. None came. Around the chamber, many turned not to the Arvathi, but to the humans, studying them, remembering. "This is not a threat," Marin said. "This is not a warning. It is a final notice. You will return our people. You will offer explanation. You will recognize our patience for what it is." She let the silence follow like a long shadow. Then, almost casually, she added, "We are annoyed." A rustle passed through the chamber. To many species, it was a trivial word, mild, irritated, at worst inconvenient. The Arvathi, too, seemed to lean into that assumption, relief flickering behind Kelthuin's eyes. But those who had encountered Terran psychology more intimately, the Ulmer, the Cherii, even the distant Crane, knew better. For humans, annoyed was a pressure valve phrase, the calm surface over boiling depths. It was what they said before they acted without remorse, before they stopped asking questions and started ending problems. Marin turned on her heel and walked away, not dismissed, not defeated. Finished. As she passed, Ambassador Tellen from the Ixil Hive reached out with a thin, trembling limb. "Commander," he whispered, "do you mean to escalate?" Ilana didn't stop. Her words trailed behind her like frost. "No, we already have." Behind her, the chamber remained still, stunned into understanding. The Arvathi delegation did not speak. Their silence was louder than any outburst. And above, Where the sleek black Terran ship hovered in wait, a new designation began to scroll across its hull in pale blue letters. Level 7. Diplomatic intervention active. For those familiar with Earth's protocols, it was the last line before full kinetic engagement. In the silence that followed, something shifted, not just among the Arvathi, not just among the Council, but in the air itself, like the first quiet moment before a storm that no one could stop. And as the humans left the chamber, not one of them looked back. The lights aboard the Aegis 9 dimmed to a calming hue as the vessel exited the gravity well of Concord Prime. Commander Ilana Marin stood at the forward viewport, hands clasped behind her back, posture straight, but not rigid. Below them, the station receded into the stars, a pale blue monument to a diplomatic order that was fraying by the hour. Beside her, Lieutenant Juno Kess waited silently, reading the tension in her commander's stillness. Few knew Marin the way Juno did. She had studied under her, deployed beside her, and once narrowly avoided dying on a failed peacekeeping mission when Marin had made a call no one else dared to. Marin wasn't reckless. She simply didn't bluff. They still don't understand. Juno said finally, her voice low. They understand just enough to pretend they don't. Ilana replied without turning, which makes them arrogant or desperate. Either one is dangerous. Juno nodded and activated the wall display, pulling up a dossier. It was the Arvathi, again, faces, dates, intercepted transmissions. The code, precise cataloging of failure. One of the entries flickered red. Ambassador De Amir, presumed dead. Last signal, 6 seconds of scrambled static. No body, no location. Just a name now etched on a scroll in Earth's diplomatic archives. They've misread us before, Juno said, but not like this. Ilana stepped back from the viewport, her eyes not quite soft but less steeled. They think we posture the way they do. Threaten, delay, provoke for negotiation leverage. Most species do. Then most species haven't read our history. Silence stretched for a moment. The kind born not from hesitation, but from remembering. Earth's past was layered in warnings disguised as restraint. Not declarations of war, but quiet withdrawals from the table. Polite statements. Coded language. One species, decades ago, had failed to grasp what we strongly advise against further incursion meant. Their entire satellite belt had been reduced to floating slag before they grasped the translation. Juno shifted the display to Marin's profile. Her clearance allowed access to internal mission logs, encrypted journals. The record showed nothing unusual, but there were gaps, entries listed but sealed, even from command. Marin noticed the glance. You're wondering if I'm too close to this. I'm wondering if you've already decided the outcome. Ilana studied her for a beat, then walked toward the command table and tapped the edge of it twice, waking its console. The outcome was decided when they ignored protocol, when they silenced our envoys and offered no answer. You don't take something from us and expect patience to be infinite. A quiet chime sounded as the ship's AI, Oris, activated. Commander Marin, an incoming communique from Fleet Command. Priority level, direct oversight. Juno raised an eyebrow. They're watching now. They should be. The screen filled with the face of Admiral Riven, the stern-eyed architect of Terran diplomatic strategy. His gaze landed on Marin with all the familiarity of a mentor and none of the softness. Ilana, Admiral, you made quite the impression. Kael'Thuan is crying protocol violations and psychological warfare. He's lucky all we use is language. Riven's face twitched, approval or warning. It was hard to tell. You know how delicate this is. I do. I'm also aware that they've tested the very definition of peace. Riven leaned back slightly. I need to ask you plainly. Are you moving toward action? I'm moving toward accountability. He studied her. And if they still refuse? Ilana didn't blink. Then they'll learn that annoyed means a window for mercy is closed. Riven nodded slowly. Understood. We'll stand by for your assessment. The screen darkened. Juno waited a beat. You're not bluffing. I never bluff, Ilana said. And they need to learn that annoyed is the calmest thing they'll ever hear from us. As she spoke, Oris interjected. Commander, sensor ping. We have a trace on the missing envoys. Coordinates align with a remote asteroid station in the Vera system. Massed emissions and encrypted shields. No outbound transmissions. Ilana's expression hardened. Is it Arvathi? Unknown. Architecture suggests Arvathi design, but encryption is Terran, possibly copied. Juno frowned. They're mimicking us? Or framing us? Ilana said. Either way, they've crossed a threshold. She turned to the crew. Set course for Vera. Quiet run. No alerts. And prepare the diplomatic strike team. Juno hesitated. We're going in? Ilana looked at her directly. They kidnapped our people. One's already dead. This is no longer diplomacy. It's recovery. The crew moved without further instruction. There was no panic, no rush, just a shift in presence. The way a predator coiled before it leapt, silent and certain. As the stars shifted around them and Aegis 9 vanished into fold space, Ilana stood once more at the front of the bridge. Her gaze was fixed, but not far off, not distant. She was looking at what came next. The asteroid station loomed ahead like a buried wound in space, cloaked in false readings and surrounded by the kind of silence that didn't happen naturally. Aegis 9 held position at a safe distance, its engines purring at minimal output, hull lights dimmed to ghost mode. Inside the operations deck, the diplomatic strike team readied in practiced silence. No raised voices, no unnecessary chatter. The mood was ritualistic, solemn, focused, the kind of calm that came just before things turned irreversible. Commander Ilana Marin stood beside the mission table, her black uniform now reinforced with stealth-weave armor beneath the fabric. Her fingers tapped lightly across the interface as she studied the updated schematics Oris had generated. The station's power signatures fluctuated erratically, energy surges that suggested hidden systems beneath the visible layout. She didn't like anomalies. They never meant anything good. Lieutenant Juno Kess stood to her left, checking her wrist comms. One external dock, two interior bays, both cold, no life signs showing. They'll be masked, Ilana said, her voice low. They know we're coming, even if they don't know when. That's the only reason you hide your heat. Juno nodded. Team's ready. They're expecting resistance. Ilana turned slightly to address the 6 operatives standing behind her, each one trained not just in combat, but in diplomatic retrieval. They were the quiet ones, the ones who knew when to fire and when to pause long enough for an answer. Their suits bore no insignia. Their weapons were precision-calibrated to disable, not destroy. For now, this is not a declaration of war, Ilana said. Not yet. We're here to confirm our people's status and bring them home. Anyone who stands away of that becomes a secondary concern. There were no nods, no affirmations. The team just moved, slipping into the narrow corridors that led to the drop shuttle. Juno followed after a beat, pausing only to glance at Ilana. You're leading this personally? Ilana looked up. They need to see who we send when we stop being patient. The shuttle launched without fanfare, drifting toward the asteroid under a blanket of reflective shielding. No signals, no sound, just momentum and precision. Inside, the strike team checked their syncs and calibrated pulse rifles to non-lethal. Even now, the Terran protocol held. Diplomacy until the very last moment. As they approached the airlock, Oris whispered through the team's comms. Docking clamp engaged. No active defense. Internal atmosphere within breathable range. Still no movement. Ilana didn't relax. They're watching, waiting. The hatch opened with a whisper and a hiss. The interior of the station was dim, metallic corridors stretching like veins through the rock. It had the smell of old power, recycled air, and something beneath it all. Something too clean, artificial. They moved in formation. 2 in front, 2 in rear, Ilana and Juno in the center. As they advanced, the lights blinked to life one by one. Not in welcome, but in warning. Control override, Juno muttered. They're guiding us. Ilana nodded once. Let them. At the end of the corridor, a wide chamber opened like the hollowed heart of the asteroid. In its center stood 3 containment cells. 2 were occupied. Inside, the Terran diplomats, Ambassador Hal Weiss and Linguist Lena Dor, sat motionless, weak but alive. No wounds visible, just absence, a hollowing. The third cell was empty, its floor stained with a dark residue that wasn't quite blood, but wasn't not either. Ilana stepped forward until containment field shimmered before her. Hal looked up slowly. His voice rasped. "You came. You didn't give us a choice," she said, and something in her tone cracked the silence like a knife through frost. A voice echoed from above, filtered through speakers too high to see. Faster than expected, Commander Marin, but predictable. Ilana froze, not at the words, but at the voice. It was human. Juno's rifle swung upward. "That's not Arvathy." "No," Ilana whispered. "That's ours." A figure stepped from the shadows of a second-level catwalk. Human, clad in Terran combat armor, insignia scrubbed clean. His face was pale, unshaven, familiar. Lieutenant Rhys Vallon, officially declared dead 4 years ago in a covert operation near the Arvathy border. Ilana's voice was ice. "You defected." Vallon smiled. "I adapted." "You murdered Amir." "No," he said. "I gave him a choice." He chose pride. The strike team shifted, weapons raised. Vallon made no move to resist. "You don't get it, do you? The galaxy doesn't fear us because we're strong. It fears us when we're silent, when we say nothing except that we're annoyed. Because that's when we stop negotiating." Ilana's fingers twitched. "You wanted this. You wanted us to cross a line. I wanted them to see it. The Council, the Arvathy, everyone, to understand that when humans run out of patience, we don't ask permission to act. We do." Ilana stared at him. Her next words meant for more than just a traitor. "We don't bluff. We don't broadcast our fury. We give warnings dressed as courtesy. When that fails, we write in fire." Vallon's grin faltered. The containment cells powered down behind her as Oris regained control. The diplomats collapsed into the arms of their rescuers. Ilana raised her weapon. And this is the part they always forget. Her pulse shot was clean, silent. Vallon's body dropped before another word passed. The chamber fell into stillness once more. No alarms. No retaliation. Just recovery. Juno approached. "What now?" Ilana looked at the void above. "Now we send a message. Not a threat. A truth. When humans say we're annoyed, believe us." She turned, her voice firm. "Bring them home. And burn this place behind us." The stars over Concord Prime pulsed with quiet indifference as Aegis 9 returned from the Vera system. Its hull bore no scars. Its weapons remained cold, but silence followed it like a shadow, an unspoken signal that the galaxy had shifted, even if no alarms had sounded. In the upper levels of the Terran embassy, within a chamber reserved for classified debriefs, Commander Ilana Marin sat alone before a tribunal of her own command. Admiral Riven appeared on the center display, flanked by 2 senior Terran strategists. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried the weight of both scrutiny and familiarity. "You neutralized a rogue asset, rescued the diplomats, contained the leak before it fractured trust with the Council. Some would call that efficient." Ilana didn't react. Some would ask why he defected in the first place. Riven's eyes narrowed. "And your answer?" He believed we were too restrained, that our diplomacy made us predictable, soft. He weaponized the myth of Terran fury to provoke an incident we couldn't walk back. One of the strategists, a wiry man named Saren Voss, leaned forward. "And you gave him exactly what he wanted, didn't you?" "No," Ilana said. "I gave him what he deserved, but not what he wanted. He hoped we'd escalate, spark open war with the Arvathy, make us look unhinged. We didn't. But you killed him." "I ended a traitor who had already killed 1 diplomat, tortured 2 others, and was attempting to bait the Terran fleet into a proxy war." Riven held up a hand, stilling the debate. "There will be questions from the Council, whispers about due process, but not many. The Arvathy have gone silent." Ilana tilted her head. "Silence used to be their weapon. Now they've learned it's ours." Saren clicked his tongue, disapproving. You've set a tone, Commander, one we may not be able to walk back from. We were never bluffing, she said. I just reminded them. The tribunal fell quiet, and after a pause, Riven gave a short nod. Debrief concluded. You're dismissed. The screen went dark. Outside, the embassy's observation deck was empty but for Juno Kess, arms crossed as she stared through the glass at the curvature of the planet below. She didn't turn when Ilana approached, but her posture relaxed. I watched the tribunal feed. Juno said, You came out intact. They wanted a narrative they could sanitize. And you gave them one? I gave them the truth, filtered enough to swallow. Juno exhaled softly. So what now? They'll file this under containment and recovery. Everyone pretends this didn't nearly fracture the diplomatic order. Ilana stepped beside her. They'll remember the phrase, That's enough. Juno gave her a sidelong look. We're not done, are we? Ilana's silence was confirmation. Across the sector, word had spread quietly. No public broadcasts. No accusations. Just a shared shift in posture. Arvathi fleets retracted their forward deployments. Council meetings resumed under tighter security. And the word annoyed took on a new weight in diplomatic channels. It appeared in reports and memos, often without context, but always circled in red. Some species whispered that humanity had changed, that the Terrans had reached a threshold and stepped beyond it. Others insisted it had always been this way, politeness masking steel, courtesy backed by calculated force. A warning that looked like diplomacy until it didn't. Back aboard Aegis 9, the crew began to settle into quiet routines. The rescued diplomats were placed in psychological care, their recovery slow, but progressing. The strike team returned to training. No medals awarded, no recognition given. That was the protocol. What mattered had already been said, without banners or trumpets. Ilana moved through the ship like a thought half-formed, her presence calm but never idle. She paused in the command bay, letting her hand rest briefly on the arm of the captain's chair. A habit, a reminder. Aura spoke gently. Incoming message from the Crayan consulate, requesting Terran interpretation of the term annoyed in formal context. Ilana allowed herself a faint smile. Send the dictionary definition. No embellishments. Understood, Aura said. Then, after a pause, would you like to include a note? Ilana considered. Just one sentence. Take us at our word. The console dimmed again, and beyond the viewports, the stars burned on, indifferent as ever, but now a little more cautious of the quiet blue planet, whose people had stopped raising their voices, because they'd realized long ago that real power didn't need to shout. It only needed to mean what it said.